Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is our second panel discussions. It's part of the program of the work we started in the UN World Innovation Day with the hackathon, and then continuing with a couple of panel discussions. The first discussion was around the mental health and healthcare. This is more about how COVID impacted the education and what will the future look like. We are here joined by awesome panelists from industry and from academia. They're going to talk about their, I guess, experience, and we're going to talk about some use cases. As you all know, pandemic impacted many things. All of us have been impacted by this particular problem around the world, directly or indirectly. But education, I guess, was hit very hard. Universities especially couldn't have face-to-face, and they had to think about some other alternatives and adapt with the new norm. Some of them going online, some of them hybrid, and using technology was one of the major solutions for this problem. If you think about it, even the assessment was one of the major problems they were facing, and how to control, how to, I guess, make sure that everything is fair. And some started using some AI technologies. The others were using human intervention. Anyway, they came up with some solutions, and we would like to hear more about these solutions and what will be, I guess, next. So I'm here joined by Professor Henry Da, the head of Department of Computer Science and IT from Trobe University. He is going to co-chair this panel discussion with me. Hi, Henry, welcome.
Hi, Steve. Yeah, so, good evening or, the good morning, everyone, depending on where you are. It's great to, join the panel section, with Steve, and, great to have the support from UNESCO and also, Oracle and, other panelists to join the session.
Awesome. Thank you, Henry. I'm going to ask our awesome audience to tell us where they are from, and also how is the pandemic kind of impacting their education, if they're university students, or if they're dealing with any specific challenges in their own countries. We would like to hear from them. So please let us know in the comments, and also share your questions. I'll promise you I'll ask our panelists during this 1 hour of discussions, and at the end of the discussion as well. So Henry, would you like to talk a little bit about the agenda and the high level of the conversations?
Yeah. Okay. So Steve, so I think you just give a great start that the COVID-19 actually changed a lot of the ways for people to learn. Not only the learning or experiences actually from the regular education, but also for those who are currently working, and there is kind of like especially the impact is on the creativity or innovation, these aspects. Although the online teaching actually has been for a while, but during this the year, then the people start to get used to the meeting the online, and they start to figure out the lots of things actually being supported by technology and make the things possible. So I think the still the people reporting the positive and the negative learning experiences around the world. So I think the purpose of the panel is to have the experts from different country, different culture, and different disciplines, and share their thoughts and experiences. How they can overcome the COVID-19 from their own aspects, and then let us know the good practice and the bad practice, and then the what we can learn from now in order to face to the next COVID-19. All right.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Henry. So I'm going to quickly introduce our awesome panelists. Nicole Engelbert, she's the Vice President, Higher Education Development from Oracle. Thank you very much for joining this panel from USA. So thank you very much. It should be morning right now.
Yes.
It should be early morning. Yes. And the next panelist, Professor Masa Inakage from Japan. Thank you for joining us, Masa.
I'm looking forward to this panel.
Thank you. And also we have Professor Kumpo Lee, Dean of School of Design, Hong Kong Polytechnic University.
Hello, Kumpo Lee from Hong Kong.
We have Mark Lee, Executive Vice President, Immersive Learning Research Network. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be with you.
Sasha Rubel, Program Specialist, Digital Innovation and Transformation, UNESCO. Thank you for joining us from Paris.
Happy to be here.
And also, we have Professor Yingqing, Director of Lego Lifelong Learning Lab from Tsinghua University, China. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Awesome. That's great. All right. So, Henry, would you like to start with the first question?
So I think the first questions will throw to the Kumpo. We know the Kumpo actually is one of the great leader in the design innovation area, and he actually also has the great experiences actually in cooperation also in academic. So Kumpo was a professor in KAIST in South Korea, and now moved to Hong Kong, and he was the vice president of the LG design. So I think my question especially for him is that, okay, so what would be the impact of COVID-19 on education, and especially in in terms of the creativity and the innovation, because we know that when we are teaching design or innovation, creativity, lots of hands-on work, and that is heavily relying on face-to-face. Okay. And during the COVID-19, then everything is online, and although a couple of technology actually being developed to helping these, but what's your thoughts and what you have seen? Do you think the technology is be able to overcome these, or you think it's still far away?
Okay, thank you. Actually, in Hong Kong, even before the coronavirus, actually, School of Design, Hong Kong Polytechnic University, we already experienced we could not access campus even before coronavirus. As you may know, that there was some political instability in Hong Kong. So we already experienced from last November the campus was completely closed. So we are maybe for the first education institute to begin to think about how to really teach them. Okay, so in 2019 November, when we have some political unrest, we actually we could not think about this kind of Zoom or Skype. Rather, we meet in other place and more conventional way. Okay, if we have only Skype. Okay, then 2020 in early February we began to much earlier that our education from online mode Zoom. Okay. In the beginning, I think in pretty summary, in the beginning, we concerned really a lot, okay, because in design, you have many things we need to teach hands-on the experience, like model making and also demonstration and all those things, okay. So we had a tremendous challenges, such as Hong Kong also, that when our school was completely locked down, Hong Kong has a unique situation. Internet is everywhere. I think we're well connected, but the problem is the space. Okay, as you know that in Hong Kong, the land is very small, and in the flat is even as small as 200 or 300 square feet. So that they do not have any independent space even to connect with those the online speech, and that was really tremendous challenging. That inequality in the space that was challenging. Another one is Hong Kong still, where we concern a lot about privacy, and students are not really familiar to be placed in front of camera. So that all the participants, they do not show their face. So that was a tremendous challenge, particularly for the faculty members. So faculty members, they feel like they speak on the wall, okay? That is another challenge. Naturally, we lost a lot of the social interaction in design. We should meet them together and actually teamwork together, discuss together, argue together. We read facial emotion, very sensitive matters, and all those things were quite challenging matters. But surprisingly, after 6 months, 1 semester later on, we realize more and more, okay, the limit, constraint forced us to, we have to be creative, okay? We never think about any that kind of creativity. The first challenging and the creativity we found out is how can we have an annual graduate show, okay? We, like all the design school, in every year we have annual graduate show. So that most university, they use the web-based annual show, so that audience, they click. But we are one of the first the university design school use the 3D immersive show, so that we film all those each detail, so that allow that all the audience around the world, they can just click and they browse and see it, okay? So that kind of create way of exhibition even make more worldwide audience more accessible, okay? So that demonstrate us that the limit is not necessarily bad things, but very good drive for us to be very innovative, okay? So that is also good good opportunity. The other benefit is that, as you may know, all experience, we can easily invite around the world any any teachers, any colleagues. We can even have a more collaboration with other schools, and through the collaboration. So that was another big advantages. Okay, and also design school, they are so good at to begin to creative adaptivity about how can you do, for example, that as I talked about in the beginning, when we have online teaching, they do not show their face. But we mix after that face-to-face meeting, they begin to, show their face. And also, normally in Asia, they do not challenge the professor by raising hands and to ask a question. But now online, they can ask many questions by texting, right? Those things are quite a good, opportunity for us. But still, I would say the technology is far behind than as much as high level as we expect. I think that's the one, those things so far experienced.
So, Kyobo, thanks for you share, the practice actually you have, and then I think you know that technology is still the far behind from your perspective. I think that is a good that okay, probably the Nicole here can and also Steve and Mark can comment a bit the whether the from technology perspective the what you can share the latest things actually can help. But at the same time, I think the the Professor Shi and also Masa Sai actually also the in charge of some of the administrative duty actually in university can the also share the couple of the practice actually they have. But I think right now I just directed the question to the Masa, because I know Masa is the thought leader and the participant the World Economic Forum, and then actually interact with the government officials from the policy perspective. So we know the university actually heavily influenced by the government, especially for Asian universities. And also, the courses need to be accredited by professional society, this type of thing. So, from your, the experiences, and also, as a dean of a school, then what do you think of, the from the the management perspective, especially for the creative education? What do you think about how the the government, whether give the enough support in Japan, for example, or how the university as the administration the respond to such the tough scenario?
That's a very interesting way of phrasing the situation from management point of view. So when Japan realized it's going to be a serious matter, we've closed down the campus entirely from late March and shifted completely to online, and we needed to prepare for this. So we started actually before this late March campus closure to prepare everything that can be done online. We created online campus. Everything is done on Zoom, and we also tried to find more platforms that allows interactivity for creativity, such as rather than using physical whiteboard for brainstorming, we are using digital whiteboard as everyone else is doing. And so I think overall, online education to us seems to be more effective than doing in person in the classroom. We see this kind of challenge as an opportunity space for innovating the new stage of education. We're now designing physical space to repurpose for different uses. Whenever we can do lectures, we can still use online, regardless of the COVID-19 pandemic. And there are things that we realize that it needs to be done in physical property, such as what we call white space is between the breaks of the sessions. Students get together and just chat about random things, and that kind of a serendipity encounter of students and faculties more important than trying to do a formal session online. This kind of chatting cannot really happen online at the moment. In terms of the challenge from the government, I think Japan is in a very different situation. The government initially requested to do things online, but soon after they are challenging us to go back in person while the pandemic is still rapidly increasing. And so from the safety point of view, it's a really difficult situation of why the minister wants us to do in person and when online education seems to be working for us. So it's a different challenge. So it is perhaps because some freshman students complain that they never been on campus and they can't find friends. So there are cases that makes lots of sense, but at the same time, it's an opportunity for students to learn how to make use of online. I think we are in the transition, and how to make use of this kind of digital transformation. Schools needs to be redefined. Classes should be redefined. Teaching and learning to be redefined. And so the more adaptive students and faculties are, the more possible solutions can come out from the institution. So I'm really happy to see this happening at my school. We're now in the phase of designing cyber-physical university and learning.
So I think that's interesting because that it's kind of like of course we know that COVID-19 changed everything, but I think this is the first time I heard that the university start to rethink their the campus space. Right, because we all know Japan actually the space is quite it's a critical issue, it's quite precious. So actually the COVID-19 the lots of online activity actually is for you to rethink the allocation of the physical space. It's interesting. So I think we talk about from the education activity perspective. We're talking about the management and from the government policy perspective. I think learning it's not just only for the current the students and but also for those who currently is working, because we all know the learning is a lifelong process. So I think I pass the question to right now to Professor Shi in Tsinghua University. So who is looking into the lifelong the learning process. So we know during the COVID-19 lots of people actually lost their job, and the government actually give the policy and the support actually ask all those who the lost job go back to university for short courses and also to upskill. So the what do you think the all those people the come back to campus especially not to the face-to-face they get used to, and instead that when they come back to campus the 20 years later and they need to go online. So what is your experience about that?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, actually, when we talk about the lifelong learning, actually, we are thinking about that is it's not only the people after work to go back to campus, but also maybe from the age 0 to think about how to educate or how to to working with the people together, particular for kids, and to think about how to engage them to have the creative thinking. And also, some people, if after it's very serious, and the time after go back home, go back to campus, and how to face this kind of the challenge. Up to now, my experience. Let's maybe first talk about my experience in the last year and a very serious time. And actually, in Tsinghua University, and I'm teaching, and we never stop teaching, and make sure the students can have an opportunity to continue to their study. But we have been thinking about something like how we improve the user experience of online learning in the school, but also for the people just mentioned about it, because we never know in the future what's will be happened, but I think and the online learning is not start during the COVID-19, but actually it's a long history. But the online learning, the experience, how to make the experience more friendly and more comfortable for students, that is a challenge. For example, some people, if did a long time to online learning, of course we can learn a lot, but and it kind of very easy to feeling tired, or maybe is missed the opportunity to communication as on-site, face-to-face. But in the whole teacher process, our learning process, classroom learning is a very different experience, because teacher can face-to-face to talking about each of the students and maybe part of the students. But this kind of communication is very very important part of the teaching. If we think about in the future, and the people have to be to learning online, so we have to think about how to improve the learning experience, also teacher experience. Actually, for teaching, similar case, if we talk about the computer, the screen is very different, kind of strange, if a long time to talk about it. So that is, we think about it, this is our next challenge, and for all people. For you just talk about the lifelong learning, actually, I think about it for the people, whatever the situation, every people should be keep you learning lifelong. And that means, we have to learning, this is very, serious, the COVID-19 and the situation to make us to rethinking our, knowledge, our, the experience, and our, in the future, our how we can improve our job. So is will be, the impact on your future. On the other hand, we have seen the COVID-19 has a very big impact to how we how we rethink about the lifelong learning. So that is, I just think about it. Thank you very much.
All right, so thanks, Yingqing's sharing. So I think this indeed to improve the students' learning experiences. Especially they are not get used to online in the past, and suddenly get onto online. I think that's all we as a academic, that is something actually we are looking into. So I think we have heard the people from academia actually talking about this. So I think the start to hear a big voice actually is from industry. So I think Nicole, so we all know Oracle actually is working on the education side actually for quite a long time. That we have an Oracle Academy, which provide a tremendous resource for students, and also Oracle universities looking into the training for industry the leaders. So could you share a bit how Oracle actually develop the technology in order to the helped the either academia or company to face to the such the tough COVID-19 the period.
Sure. Thank you, Henry, and it's absolutely wonderful to be here. I'm quite stunned by all the comments where everyone is from all kind of around the world. It's very interesting, the things that kind of Masa and Kumpao and I'm sure you have said really reinforce what Oracle has kind of learned and seen kind of over the last year. I think everyone has probably seen the internet memes that talk about, in 3 months we accomplished more digital transformation than we planned for the next 10 years or even longer. And it's fun to talk about, and it's kind of silly, and it's great for kind of social conversations in a socially distant type of way. But I think what was really interesting, and I think the lesson learned, and it's coming through in each of the panelists' discussion, is what this digital transformation has accomplished in the last year, is we've moved from a scenario where our kind of online services, our technology was used in many regards simply to recreate the analog experience. We created classrooms that were online, but they looked and functioned very much as if they were kind of in person. The online services we delivered to students, the self-service, looked very much like if they were holding a piece of paper, standing in a queue in a hallway outside the registrar's office or the vice chancellor's kind of office. The way we delivered information to students was very much if they had opened an academic catalog and read it. And so we missed a very special and important part of technology. And so as we shifted kind of online or shifted digitally during the first few months of COVID, instead of taking that kind of digital transformation leap, how I'd love to position it more is we took a huge step towards what analysts often call kind of real omni-channel approaches to communication and interaction. So we kind of cast aside kind of what the analog experience, because that was no longer relevant and we had no real idea of when we'd be returning to it, and went through this exercise, perhaps subconsciously, though I think any instructional designer kind of out there would be like, we knew this kind of all along, we knew this was the way to do this. We went through this exercise of thinking about, all right, what are the unique requirements of the interaction? And what kind of communications channel or technology is best suited to meet those requirements? You know, what is the desired outcome of that interaction? Which channel can do that kind of most effectively? What are the preferences or circumstances kind of that student? Is he or she sitting in that 200 square foot flat in Hong Kong and needs to be needs to be quiet, can't be kind of in a kind of large chat situation? Are there resource constraints? Does the student have access only on his or her mobile phone, or do they have kind of high speed kind of broadband? So what are the constraints we need to kind of consider with technology? And so we start kind of going through that exercise kind of as we think about the instructional, the teaching and learning experience, as we think about the research experience, as we think about the services, the social services to students, as we think about the human resource services to kind of faculty and staff, we start creating a very different digital experience for these stakeholders. And that's where this kind of true invention happens, is where this kind of true digital transformation kind of occurs. And I have really kind of no doubt, I feel quite confident, I'm going to put the stake in the ground kind of right now and say, there won't be actually a return to normalcy. We will actually keep many of these kind of fully digital types of service and interaction because they're more effective. Think about that Zoom meeting you might have with a student. That might work better than the kind of office hours experience, or that digital assistant or chatbot answering kind of routine, kind of expected questions works much better than having them stand in a queue with a piece of paper outside of the provost's office. And so kind of at the end of the day, I mean, what Oracle hopes is that we can obviously build better and more powerful and more accessible and more efficient technology to kind of support all these new interactions. But I think the future is very different, and our usage and consumption of technology will be much more powerful as a result of the last year with COVID-19.
Yeah, so I think the what you say is exactly right, because as academic, what we see during the past year, a couple of technologies just try to duplicate, okay, so whatsoever we have face to face and then transfer to online. But basically, the miss the point. Actually, the interaction style may not be the same, and the couple of the social cue may not be the same. So there's certainly such direct translations may not really work. So it's quite exciting to see actually Oracle actually look into these and develop a new product. So I just kind of like cannot wait actually to see the products actually so Oracle can offer. Yeah. So I think Mark, I know actually you work on the augmented reality or the virtual reality, especially for education, and you are also the chief editor of IEEE Transition on Learning Technology. So looking into a lot of the great the research outcomes submitted to such prestigious journal. So could you share with us a couple of things actually may echo what the Nicole said, especially the point she made, there's something missing in our the current technology. So maybe that you can share with us some of things has been developed in the research area.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Henry, and it's an honor to be with all of you here today. Yeah. So as you said, Henry, my kind of expertise is in educational technology and the learning sciences, but with a specific focus on the application of VR, AR, or what we call XR, immersive technologies, specifically for supporting and enhancing learning. And I wear many hats, but the one I'm kind of wearing the two that I'm wearing today, I guess, are firstly, I'm Executive Vice President of the Immersive Learning Research Network, and then I'm also the as you mentioned, the IEEE Transactions on Learning Technologies Editor-in-Chief. So iLRN, just to give everyone a little bit of background and context, is a nonprofit, a global nonprofit organization. iLRN, the Immersive Learning Research Network, is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to cultivate communities of research and innovation and evidence-based practice around what works, quote unquote, in XR and immersive learning. We last year we've had a conference that has rotated back and forth between North America and Europe now for since 2014. Last year, when the pandemic hit, we very early on, as soon as it hit, we made the decision to pivot to not only an online conference, but one that was but then one that was held in a 3D virtual environment. We thought, we should really, as the professed experts in XR for learning, really walk the walk instead of just talking the talk. And so we partnered with a company called Rubel that provides a 3D virtual campus environment. We got Rubel sponsored our conference and gave us our own private campus, which is actually publicly accessible. If anyone's interested in checking it out, you can go to the iLRN website, and there are instructions on how to access it. That's immersivelrn.org. I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the lessons that we've learned, kind of running our own educational and learning events within this 3D virtual environment, as well as supporting a number of other groups. We've had a number of IEEE conferences that we've hosted on the platform, as well as educational institutions. We have a number of institutions that are partners and who have their own spaces for meeting and teaching on our virtual campus. So I'm not sure if I'm able to share my screen, but if possible, I wouldn't mind showing what the campus looks like, so that folks will have a little bit of context.
So Steve, can you help, or if not, due to the time limitation, so the
yeah, what is it possible? If not, I can. It's not slides that I'm going to show. I was hoping I'd just do a bit of a screen share.
Yeah, I think I can share it, but yeah, I don't have access to the client side which you're now using. So, but I can share if you can send me the link. I'm happy
okay.
to
Let me just. I'll keep kind of talking for a second. So this just yeah. So I mean, maybe I'll just kind of provide a details later of how people can access.
I'm happy to share it later with the audience.
Yeah,
that would be, I guess, easier.
Yeah, that'd be good. So I guess one of the things that one of the kind of real lessons that we've learned has been, I mean, right when this pandemic hit, I guess there was a real a scramble for people to for those of us who worked in online education for some time, many of us all of a sudden had to rethink the way that we do things. Many of the a lot of the commonly accepted knowledge kind of went out of the window almost overnight. And that's really forced us to kind of think carefully about think carefully about. I'm sorry, I'm just getting a lot of interference here. Oops. Sorry, I had the virtual campus application open, and I was getting kind of noise from both places.
That's okay. It's a live event, and these things happen.
Yeah,
so
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then yeah. So one of the things is that that people that we were forced to kind of question some of the commonly accepted wisdom around what makes for good education, good learning, good teaching, such as what is the role that having a shared sense of place and space plays in effective pedagogy, right? And by space and place, I mean not just physical space and place, but also virtual. Right, and we had people coming to us at iLRN wanting to replicate a lot of things that they do in a face-to-face environment in a virtual environment, and that really gave us an opportunity to talk to them about really what their intentions were and whether the affordances of the technology really were suitable for what they were trying to do. For example, Zoom and Zoom fatigue is a real thing, right? But there are certain things that Zoom is good for. For example, being able to see people face to face. Sometimes collaborating on shared documents in a Zoom environment is also preferable to other kind of more advanced collaboration environments, because there's less sort of cognitive overhead. So if you're just displaying PowerPoints, or maybe collaborating on a Google Doc, or just having a conversation like we are now, then a Zoom Zoom environment will probably suffice. But there are also spatial affordances that we take for granted in a physical or in-person environment, such as the ability for students to move around a room, right, and congregate in small groups, and for the teacher to walk around and visit these different groups. And this is very common, I think, Professor Kyompo would find in a design environment where they do a lot of studio teaching, right? And also the kind of informal conversations that arise when meeting people in colleagues and students and other faculty in corridors, having these water cooler conversations. Those are the kinds of things you just cannot simulate in a Zoom meeting, where it is just completely ephemeral, right? You start the meeting, you have the meeting, you show your video, you talk, you might share some material, and then the meeting ends. So that's where I think there's real potential for 3D virtual environments to provide that shared sense of space and 3D space and place, and also a kind of facilitate the kinds of collaboration that are difficult to do in a flat or a 2D environment. And I have to say, I really agree with Nicole in her assessment that we won't return to the previous normal, so to speak, right? I don't really, however, I don't really see it as an either or. I actually think we will see a situation where now, because we've been forced, right, to expose ourselves to the possibilities and the affordances of these digital technologies and these digital approaches to doing things, I think moving forward, educators will be a lot more pragmatic about using the time, the time that they have the luxury of having in person with students in ways that make effective use of that time and of that modality. And that moving forward, I think we're going to see increasingly a hybrid situation, not just hybrid in the sense of, what you call a combination of face-to-face and online activities, but also bringing together people, including students and teachers and experts from different modalities, via different modalities, together into the same learning environment synchronously. So you might have a group of students who are meeting in a classroom with the teacher, some students joining remotely from their homes or offices, experts brought in via video conferencing, and also people and also additional students maybe in other countries that they may be in little pods of 3 or 4 students who also join, and then all these and the teacher will then need to be adept at teaching across these modalities in real time. I also think that moving forward, kind of my prediction, but I'm a little biased because of the area I research in, is that in the future there will be a blending of the physical and the virtual, where this pair of glasses will be the primary computing device that we have rather than our screen-based devices, and it will overlay onto the world that we have around us virtual content. So a mixed reality situation where students and teachers and other experts all feel like they are in the same physical place, but some of them might be in completely different geographical locations. However, they feel like they are all sitting in the same room and able to interact with a combination of physical and virtual artifacts.
All right, so I think Mark, thanks for sharing your the thoughts, and it's something look from forefront technology perspective. So I think so question maybe for Sasha as the UNESCO the specialist. So you probably see lots of things across the different countries, from the well-developed country to the still the underdeveloped countries. I think COVID-19 actually causing the different the difficulty for those countries from different aspects. So I think the from technology perspective, because you heard from academia and also from technology, or the something actually forefront technology for the future, right? Then how you think of those AI or the digital transformation in terms of the technology availability, right? All those minority issues and the equality issue across the world. What is your view, or how UNESCO actually looking into the such the post-COVID actually on education?
Thank you very much, Henry, for that question, and very happy to follow Masa and Yingqing and Kun Pyo and Mark and Nicole with their comments, because what they highlighted really underlines a lot of the work that UNESCO is in fact doing, looking at how to integrate AI and also support the development of public policies that harness AI for education. And I just want to highlight, Nicole, I love what you said, because at UNESCO, we also believe that we won't build back better. What we will do is we will build forward differently in a way that is tech-enabled but human-centered. And I'd also like to build on what Mark was saying about this hybrid model and the emphasis that he placed on needing to make sure that teachers become adept at moving across these hybrid realities, because this is exactly what UNESCO is working on in the field of AI and education. So just want to share with you a little bit what we see at UNESCO as the main challenges in terms of building forward differently with AI in the education sector. Share a little bit with you about our work in this field concretely and some of the best practices that we've been working on in the framework of COVID and beyond. and also call all of you here today on LinkedIn and also on the panel to join us in this work. So UNESCO, we see 4 main challenges in terms of AI and its impact on education. The first is, how can education systems ensure the ethical, inclusive, and equitable use, and it goes specifically, Henry, to what you were talking about in terms of marginalized groups, of AI in education, and also empower people to design and develop and deploy AI in an ethical way. The second challenge is really looking at how education can prepare humans to live and work with AI. And Masa, I love what you highlighted when you were talking in terms of, students, for example, missing interaction and missing being able to speak with their teachers and their fellow students directly. How does this change the way in which we learn? The third is really looking at how AI can be leveraged to enhance or reinvent education, speaking directly to the hybrid models that Mark was talking about. And then the last is looking at specifically how we can translate ethical principles for artificial intelligence, which UNESCO is working on in the framework of a recommendation, into concrete operational tools that benefits education and learning for all. And at UNESCO, we see the role of education institutions at 3 levels. The first is to inform citizens by empowering them with digital literacy, which in reality, many people around the world still lack, so that they not only understand the technology and its possible contributions to sustainable and social development, but can also actively ask the right questions. The second is looking at how we can alert students about how technological innovation can, and sometimes does, impact their human rights and what needs to be done in order to protect them. And the third is really looking at empowering young people. And I just like to salute Steve and my colleagues at UNEP and Oracle for the great hackathon, because this is really at the heart of what we're trying to do, is making sure that young people are empowered to be the drivers and creators of the digital solutions that will change the future and tomorrow, and not just passive consumers of these solutions. So the emphasis on digital empowerment for UNESCO is really key. But we see, despite these areas of emphasis, a couple of really serious challenges in terms of how AI can help us achieve education for all. The first is data ethics and algorithmic bias. The second is gender equitable AI and how AI can promote or impede gender equality in the classrooms, but also beyond. The third is looking at how we can use AI to help with monitoring and evaluation and research in terms of the use of AI in education. And the fourth is looking at how AI is having an impact not only on the way in which we teach, but also on the way in which we learn. And it speaks to a lot of the points that many panelists brought up here today. And so to address these issues and to be very concrete and operationalize what we see as challenges into opportunities for rethinking the future of education, we are convening debates about how AI can be used for the future of education. We're proposing policy guidance on how AI can be integrated into educational policies, but we're also developing programs that look at how AI will shape the future of humanity more broadly. And then lastly, Henry, we're looking at how to review the implications of AI for inclusion and equity, which is really key for us. The second area that we're looking at is core competencies required for living and working with AI. So as I mentioned earlier, there is a huge lack of digital literacy, but there's also a massive lack of human rights and ethics literacy in the field of AI. So we're looking very concretely at developing these literacies on different levels, and then also developing curricula for the AI era, looking at how textbooks in all disciplines and all levels need to meet the needs of students' key competencies development so that we make sure that they are AI ready. And then the last area that we're looking at is fostering AI ready policymakers and AI in education policy developments. And I just want to highlight that we recently just released earlier this month a book called AI in Education, a Guidance for Policymakers, which builds on our Beijing consensus that was adopted by over 50 government ministers and 100 representatives from UN agencies, but also academics, institutions, and the private sector in China in May 2019. And this publication gives a review of policy responses, but also highlights some best practices that exist. And just to close, I would like to just very briefly highlight 3 of the best practices that we're working on, particularly, in fact, in the Africa and Asia Pacific region, that harness AI for the transformation that we're seeking to develop. The first is looking at how to develop openly licensed curricula and training for teachers. And we're working with Huawei in Eastern Africa, building on a previous successful partnership with Google Partner Innovation to expand its teacher training in robotics, which is currently underway in more than 20 countries across Eastern Africa. But we're also, in the framework of our UNESCO's ICT CFT, which is an ICT competency framework for teachers, developing and have launched a portal for teaching AI to students. Because one of the things that we see is that a lot of teachers are very interested in integrating AI in their classrooms, but don't, first of all, have the teacher training in order to do it, and don't have the ready-made curricula that could help them in adapting and using AI in their classrooms. And then lastly, we're also with the Asian Digital Innovation Program working with Microsoft and the ASEAN Foundation to provide training in digital skills for underserved youth from ASEAN countries. And since the program began in 2019, we've trained more than 25,000 young people. So I'd like to just close here and highlight that UNESCO has launched the Global Education Coalition in light of the fact that more than, as you all know, 1.5 billion students and youth across the planet have been affected by school and university closures. And this Global Education Coalition is a platform with more than 175 members from across different stakeholder groups, committed to making sure that learning never stops and that technology is used in the way in which we are rethinking education. And we focus on 3 flagships: connectivity, teachers, and gender, as well as the educational recovery. So I'd like to just launch a call today to ask the people who are participating on LinkedIn, but also the panelists here today, to join us in our pledge to make sure that learners' personal information, privacy, and security are not only protected, but also that their digital literacy is promoted, so that we position young people with the necessary innovation and creativity and digital literacy tools to be the creators and architects of the digital future of tomorrow. Thank you, Henry.
Yeah, so thanks, Sasha, the share, the such great initiatives, and I bet, all the audiences or the panelists here, they are all excited, that they want to join with you, and to see whether we can join that or not. And I think you're also talking about a very important thing. For the post-COVID-19, the technology will play the important role, and those the technology we try to build needs to be underpinned on those important human elements, right? Digital literacy, ethical things. I think it is something we cannot miss. So I think it is a really important message. So I think that we have the panelists here, but I want to turn the host role back to Steve. Steve is the one of the leaders actually in Australia, be part of Australian Computer Society that is leading the professional the association in Australia. So I think there's a great panel, and that I will turn the host role to you, so that you can have the conclusion remark, and can share some of the things you have.
Sharing with us their insights. I'm going to just quickly talk about a couple of positives, positive opportunities coming out of COVID. And one of them for people like myself that are probably more in the digital and AI side of the education, we are thinking about how much data we are accumulating from all the interactions that are being recorded through online events and meetings and collaboration between students, which was not possible before COVID, or it was not as significant. And we're able to assess and understand more about the more of the collaboration piece here. which will give us more insights about how I guess how we're driving the education in higher education, especially, and what are the best practices that we can provide to make sure that our students are more engaged and getting more information and more I guess having a better. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yes, so I think that's what I was trying to just say is that this is a positive impact, and we hope that the data that we are accumulating is going to give us better tools and to build better AI and machine learning applications that can provide better recommendations and facilitates the learning for students. So I'm having a little bit of trouble with my bandwidth. It's something that sometimes happen in these kind of situation. I'll hand it over to you, Henry, for the final, I guess, thoughts, and then I'll be able probably to just finish off and conclude the meeting.
All right. So I think thanks for Steve. I think what I want to say is that great to have all our panelists in here and actually share their points from the different aspects, especially they are from a different country, different industry sector, and they all have a different view. And that we heard the new technology has been built, and also from the policy side, actually the government actually is thinking of the things actually on top of the human elements. I think it is really important things because that when we develop the AI or technology, there's certainly the things we cannot lost. So I think the overarching is that I don't know I saw a couple of comments from our audiences, and then they all have the great and the positive feedbacks for today's section. So this is the one of the section actually we organize, pull those people together, and I'm excited. Actually, people think it's positive. I'm looking into that we are going to have this another opportunity actually is to have our great panelists to share their the comments and their experiences again, because I think they have a lot more things they can share rather than only 3 to 5 minutes. So I think I just give it to you because I think as a part of the host,
Thank you very much.
I want to thanks again for the Oracle, UNESCO, and the ACS to give us this opportunity to be able to gather all those people talking about the important issues of education, especially the lesson we learned from COVID-19 and what we think about the post-COVID-19 education. Yeah, Steve.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
All right, so thank